Hello and welcome into BTN's Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of BTN.com, and we're back with another episode. And I think in the last few episodes I've kind of said how we're going to gear more towards basketball as football season is in the rearview mirror. We get deep into college basketball season, but just this once I lied. We've got another football guest here this week on the show, and it's a former Big Ten player and former NFL player as well. It is Adam Carriker. Adam, as Nebraska fans listening know very well, was a star defensive lineman for the Huskers in the 2000s, and then also had more than a cup of tea. He had an 8-year career in the NFL with the Rams and the Redskins. So we talked with Adam off the top about his idea to kind of reshape college football to make bowl games more meaningful, his opinion on how he thinks the college football playoff should be restructured, and just in general how some realignment, in his opinion, could just make college football better overall. So we got into that a little bit. We got into some current Nebraska football talk and some old war stories from his days with the Huskers as well. So really good 30 minutes coming up with Adam Carriker. He is the host of the Carriker Chronicles for the Omaha World-Herald. So he's got a media background and a playing background, and he's got plenty to say, as you'll hear coming up. Then after that, we tried something a little different. We got a new segment coming into the show that we hope to do pretty regularly. If you listen to the show in the past, you know we do the Stat Head segment with Harold Shelton, which is a lot of fun. It gets kind of in the numbers and a little more casual talk about Big Ten football and basketball. And this one's going to be more casual as we bring in a name you might be familiar with if you listen to the end credits of the show. She is a assistant producer on the Take 10 podcast. She's been helping me out this football and basketball season. Her name is Colleen Degnan, and Colleen and I will be diving more into the pop culture side of sports and Big Ten sports especially, but we'll also kind of wander outside those boundaries a little bit. We'll talk music, we'll talk movies, we'll talk memes, we'll talk current events as well. So it'll be loose, it'll be fun, and we're just kind of trying it out and seeing how it goes. So this is going to be the first edition of what we're calling Coll For The Culture. Name's Colleen, like I said. So we're going to go to Coll for all the pop culture and miscellaneous updates on what really is like the fringe of college sports and sports in general. So it should be fun. First, we'll get to our interview with the aforementioned Adam Carriker. And before we get to that, I just want to issue a quick reminder that you can subscribe to the Take 10 podcast wherever podcasts are found on major platforms such as iTunes, Apple Podcasts, kind of the same thing there, Podbean, Google Play, and you can also find the podcast on Big Ten Network's YouTube channels as well. So if you go to Big Ten Network on YouTube, subscribe. There's a whole playlist category for the Take 10 podcast as well. All right, so we'll start, like I said, with Adam Carriker. Then we'll get to discussion with me and Colleen for the culture, and then we'll wrap up after that. So first up, it's Adam Carriker. That interview with the former Husker starts right now. I'm very pleased to be joined by a former star defensive end at Nebraska. He's an 8-year NFL vet and a contributor to the Omaha World-Herald Carriker Chronicles. It's Adam Carriker. Adam, what's up, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, but man, how about yourself?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad to have you on for some college football talk, because even though the college football playoff is over, college football's over, I saw you're fired up. You kind of want to change the bowl format and even conferences and all that. So I watched you state your case on your Carriker Chronicles about how you think college football can be fixed. So let's hear the condensed version, the elevator speech version of that argument that you made the other day online.
I will try to give you the condensed version. There is a much longer version as well, so I'll give you the condensed version. So for me, one of the first things you got to do, all right, you got to eliminate some of the bowl games. To me, there's too many. People aren't watching. People aren't interested. There's empty stands. You know, people just aren't tuning in. It's just not interesting. It's less is more type of deal. All right. So I go to 25 bowl games rather than the 40 that they have right now, which gives you about 40% of the teams getting into a bowl game. So you make the minimum a 7-5 record to get into a bowl game rather than 6-6. Versus the 60% of teams that are in college football FBS right now that get into bowl games at the current moment. So I would start there. Then you get into the college football playoffs. So a little bit of less is more. So I would have 4 major college football bowl games. like there used to be for so long, all right, instead of the 6. I'm not a big fan. I know Texas won. I know they beat Georgia. But it's one of those things where I have a hard time with the 4-loss team getting into a major bowl game. At first, I remember the first year when they had 6 major bowl games and a 3-loss Georgia Tech team got in, and I was like, why is a 3-loss team in here? You know, so to me, you want to make it more difficult to get into those bowl games. I would go to 4 major power conferences, okay? So you make it harder to get into a bowl game. You make it harder to get into a major bowl game. You make everything a bigger deal. You make it less is more. Everything is more must-see, more must-watch. And then you get into the power conferences. I would have 4 16-team power conferences with 2 18 divisions. Same thing with the group of 4 non-power conferences. So you have 8 total conferences, 4 non-power, 4 power conferences, so to speak, with 16 teams. And the one conference that would probably dissolve just geographically, has the ability to go elsewhere, the easiest would be the Big 12, so to speak. And just as an example, I'd have Oklahoma probably going to the now Pac-16. So the way I would do it, all right, I would have the old bowl tie-ins that you used to have. The 4 major bowl games, in my opinion, would be Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Orange. And you can either do Fiesta or Cotton. I'm good with either. You know, I grew up watching the Fiesta, so I tend to err that way. And I'd have the 4 tie-ins. You have the Pac-16, the Big 10, because as much as I love the Big 10, we still can't count properly. Then you got the SEC Conference, the ACC Conference. And so I love the old Rose Bowl, okay? Because in the end, what I'd like to do with the college football playoff is you have the 4 major bowl games, and then you have the college football playoff after that. Because when you have an 8-team playoff, which was what a lot of people are advocating for, all right, the issue with that is because to me, you want to preserve the importance of the regular season. That's what makes college football unique. So many other things. College basketball, all that matters is March. NBA, heck, players aren't even showing up half the time to their NBA game. You know, the NFL, the Giants have won 2 Super Bowls with a 9-7 regular season. The Seahawks have gotten into the playoffs before with a 7-9 regular season record. So you want the regular season to matter. All right, then you want to make the bowl games a big deal again. You want people to watch, and you want to find a true national champion, an undisputed national champion each and every year. So for me, I would have the playoff after the major bowl games, because when you have the 18 playoff, you're going to get 2 and 3 lost teams in. And this year, you know, Michigan had a really good season. To me, they deserve to go to a major bowl game. But when you have 2 losses, no conference title, no division title, a really, really rough loss at the end of the year to Ohio State, it's hard for me to say that team should be playing for the national title, especially when these teams over here went undefeated. All right, a year ago, you would have had a 3-loss Auburn team. The year before that, you would have had a 3-loss Wisconsin team. You can keep going back. To me, it just devalues the regular season a little bit too much. And other than the bowl games that these playoff games are going to be in, you really devalue the bowl games. Kind of like right now, there's only 2 bowl games that matter. None of the rest of them really matter that much. All right, people tune into the Rose Bowl. I tuned in, but you know, it didn't captivate me. The UCF game captivated me a little bit because it could have had some controversy had UCF won. So to me, going back to the format, 4 major bowl games, and I would have some of the old conference power tie-ins. So the Pac-16 versus the Big 10 and the Rose. In the Sugar, I would have the SEC champ, and I like having the ACC champ. I like conference champs versus conference champs. And then in the Orange Bowl, the 2 highest rated teams in the entire country who did not win a conference championship play in the Orange Bowl. A lot of times, those teams may be rated higher than the Rose Bowl or Sugar Bowl participants. And you look at the Fiesta Bowl, I would have the highest rated group of 4 team in the entire country versus the next highest rated team available in the Fiesta Bowl. And then you can take the top 2 teams after that for national championship. You can take the top 4. I've never really definitively come to a conclusion on my own. I like less is more, but I'm afraid if you take 2, you're going to have some teams left out in certain years. I'm afraid if you take 4, you're still going to have some of the same issues you would have after the bowl games as you would with an 18 playoff after the regular season prior to the bowl games. So I haven't come to a final conclusion in my own mind just yet, but I kind of like 3 teams. I like the top seed getting a bye into the national championship game, 2 hosting 3, and you could do a scenario. And I think one reason people really like the 18 playoff this year is because it just happens to work out for UCF. UCF was the 8th rated team. Oh, well, that's perfect. It would have worked out this year. Well, a year ago, they were rated 12th. They would have been excluded. A couple years before that, Western Michigan was undefeated, played Wisconsin in the Cotton Bowl, lost on the last play of the game. You could have had a Western Michigan problem as well as UCF, and Western Michigan was only 15th. So to me, what I almost like is top 3 every year. one gets a bye into the title game, two hosts three, and then it's almost a flex at that 4 position. Right? If there's an undefeated group of 4 team that wins a major bowl game, doesn't matter what they're rated, they become a 4th team in a 4-team playoff. If there is not, it remains a 3-team playoff. That's kind of what I tend to like. People don't like it because it's not the same exact thing every year and it's too complicated. And I'm like, no, if you just sit down and think about it, it's actually pretty simple. But anyways, those are my feelings. And I kept it as short as I could. I hope that was somewhat okay.
Yeah, I was able to visualize it. That was good. And I watched the Carriker Chronicles, and you had it kind of laid out visually. But I definitely was able to get what you're going for from that explanation. And say conference realignment doesn't come to pass, or it's still far off if that ever does happen. What would a quick fix be if you had to choose something right now? I know you're against expansion. Would you leave it like it is now since conference realignment is down the road, or if it might not come at all, or would you tweak it a little bit even in the short term?
Yeah, so, I mean, I've actually talked about this with Kirk Herbstreit. He really likes the idea that I just expressed. And so the biggest thing he said to me is, dude, you got to get 5 different power conference commissioners on the same page. He's like, do you know how long it took to get a 14 playoff? Like, I love your idea. This is him talking to me. But the problem is getting it to actually happen is really, really hard. And I started talking about, how less is more, how the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl, it's a national holiday because it's one major game. I mean, the World Series is awesome. The NBA Finals is awesome. But the Super Bowl is unlike anything else because it's one thing. For a 30-second ad, a couple of years ago, I haven't updated it, just like I said on the show, they would charge you $4.5 million for one 30-second ad at the Super Bowl. So it's kind of, if you can get people excited and you can get these commissioners saying they can make money, that's how the real world works. That's how it'll happen. But let's say it's just not going to happen in the near future. They're just not going to come together. I still like 4 major bowl games. And if you have 5 power conferences, maybe in the Rose Bowl, I still like the Pac, I guess it would still be Pac-12 versus Big Ten there in the Rose Bowl. Sugar Bowl has SEC champ. Now the Orange Bowl maybe has the ACC champ. The Fiesta Bowl maybe takes the Big 12 champ. And then you've got 2 at-larges, and you've got the highest-ranked group of 5 team in the entire country as your 3 teams, and you put as your 3 at-large teams, so to speak, and then you make the best matchups possible. I still think you can do it with that extra power conference champion in there. And if you wanted to go to 5 major bowl games because you have 5 power conferences, I don't hate that because in theory, you should be able to get the top 10 teams in the country into your major bowl games. I don't like more than 4, but I really don't like more than 5 major bowl games because it makes the major bowl games not major anymore. And just like when Michigan played Florida, I mean, they had 4 players who skipped it and 4 of their best players, and I think it impacted the outcome of that football game.
Sure, and when I was doing some research on you leading up to this interview, I read your Wikipedia page, and it said you sacked Joel Klatt in one of your early years at Nebraska, and Joel's another guy who agrees with you that 4 is the magic number and it shouldn't be expanded. And Joel's been on this show before, too, so you're kind of the 2 guys that I've had in this show that don't like moving really beyond the 4 or 5 range.
Yeah, so Joel, actually, the first game that I had, so I played the Penn State game early on my redshirt freshman year. I sprained my ankle. It took a while to come back, so we always played Colorado at the end of the year, and the coaches had a really good week of practice, and they put me on our nickel package. And that was still to this day one of the better games I've ever played versus Colorado, that first game. I always played well versus Colorado because I had in-laws who talked so much trash to me that gave me extra motivation. But I hit him like 3 times. I had like a sack and a half. He was my first ever collegiate sack. So I still have a picture of that. I've thought about tweeting it out to him, but I never have.
You should someday. That'll be good. And I want to wrap up the college football playoff talk and kind of transition into Nebraska. And a good way to do that is the way Clemson has built their program and their recent championship, their second championship in the Dabo Swinney era. And I know you had another one of your pieces focusing on how Clemson has built their program and how you think Nebraska could learn a thing or two. So if you could expand on that a little bit, what do you think Nebraska can take from the Clemson model of building a championship program?
Yeah, so Clemson, I mean, they've got, obviously, probably a future number 1 draft pick, a quarterback, one of the best young receivers in the entire country with Ross. But to me, games are still won and lost in the trenches. And you can add the quarterback position in there as well. But that defensive line for Clemson, all right, they're all going to be draft picks in the NFL, high draft pick, a couple of All-Americans, one of the players is an ACC Defensive Player of the Year. And so, to me, games are won and lost in the trenches. And that's where Nebraska, they used to be so good in the offensive line, the pipeline. And you had guys like Grant Wistrom, Jason Peter, just tearing it up on the defensive line, Trev Alberts, guys like that. So we got to get back to winning in the trenches. But the other thing was that front four on Clemson came back for a purpose, for a reason, because they could have all gone pro last year. But they decided to all come back because they wanted to win a national championship. And if you watch that game, and if you watch Clemson, they looked like they were playing together with a unity of purpose towards a goal, and that was winning the national championship. I watched Alabama, and either they are just not there physically with Clemson, which is ridiculous to think with all the number one recruiting classes they have. The only conclusion I could come to is that their mentality is a little bit different. Some of them are there to win a national championship. Some of them are there for 3 years, and then they're going straight to the NFL. And that's what their ultimate goal is. Nothing wrong with that. But when you're playing a college football game, that's going to create a problem when you're playing someone else who just wants to win that college football game. So a unity, a purpose towards the same goal, winning in the trenches. And last but not least, so Alabama, I mean, Nick Saban's one of the greatest coaches of all time, could go down as the best ever by the time this is all said and done. I still maintain he's the greatest recruiter of all time, already at this moment in time. So for me, one of the things that they've had there at Alabama over the past 5 years, they've had 20 different coaches, all right? And this past year alone, they had a brand new offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator. I mean, Nick Saban can't do it all. You look at Clemson, all right, over the same 5-year span, they've had 3 coaches leave, and that's it. So it's continuity. It's being on the same page and everyone driving towards that same thing, that continuity, especially with the coaching staff on down through the training staff, the strength and conditioning staff, and the players.
Yeah, and you bring up the concept of team unity and culture and everyone striving towards the same goal. And as you watch Nebraska under year one under Scott Frost, you can kind of see and sense the culture changing as the year moved along, at least from my perspective. And Frost would say it at the press conferences, especially early on in the season. He would kind of call out what was ailing the program with guys either, dancing on the sidelines in losses or not buying in or whatever it was that were issues that he recognized. How far do you think that locker room and that team heading into year two has to go now that Scott Frost has kind of called it out and the team seemed to progress as the season moved along?
Yeah, so it was interesting because the new NCAA rule where you can redshirt after 4 games, it created some interesting drama in Nebraska football this year. Our starting running back transferred because after 4 games he wasn't playing well. He got benched, and Divino Zigbo, who only played the last 8 games of the year, had one of the best seasons in recent Husker football history for a running back. All right, now you look at one of our most talented guys on offense. I don't want to drop a whole bunch of names, but he was the highest ranked recruit we had come in a long time, and he transferred that same exact week. All right, it was that very next week. We went out, we played Wisconsin, and we lost by 17, but I watched that game, and I was like, you know what? If we could just get a stop on defense, we're in this game, and they're not just running all over us, all right, like has happened in the past. And then you watch the Northwestern game, the eventual Big Ten West champion, and they clinched it 2 weeks early, by the way. And we actually, for 3.5 quarters, significantly outplayed them, and then we gave them the game on a silver platter the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. And then the last 6 games is where everything started to change. All right, but it was the moment that some of the most talented players on the team left, but there was just a disconnect between that continuity, between that unity of purpose towards the same goal. They had different goals, and they're wonderful individuals, but as far as in a locker room football sense, they were hindering the team. And the last 6 games, you win 4 out of those 6 games. You play Ohio State down to the wire. You lose on the last-second field goal in the last game of the year. The 2 games they lost was by a total of 8 points, and the other 4 they won, and they looked pretty good doing it. They scored over 50 twice. They won another game by only scoring 1 touchdown in the entire game. So they did it all sorts of ways, and they were starting to learn how to win and come together.
Yeah, and as you kind of ran through those games, I'm looking back and remembering the offense really looked great for a lot of the year, I thought. Adrian Martinez had a lot to do with that, but especially at the end of the year, the offense came along. And as long as he's healthy, I expect it to stay that way. But you're a defensive guy, Adam. You're a black shirts guy. So I want to get your thoughts on the defense. And we saw flashes, especially in that Michigan State game. Where does the defense need to improve to end up building a championship-level defense down the road?
Yes, you started to see the defense. I mean, the defense is not where it needs to be, obviously. But you started to see the defense show flashes. Because early on in the year, you were just like, okay, what's going on? And as you were going along in the year, you could see him start to play and show flashes. That Northwestern game I talked about, for 3.5 quarters, they gave up less than 300 yards of total offense. Like, every defense I was ever on, your goal is to hold a team under 300 yards. They hadn't met that goal. The problem was what happened in the last half quarter. And then you could see throughout these games, when we played Minnesota, we held them to, they were shut out the first 28 minutes of the game. Then they scored a late touchdown. But then the second half, they had 3 long 75-plus straight touchdown drives. And then we shut them down a little bit, and then we scored over 50 on offense. The defense would do it, it would play well, and then it would be just inconsistent. They couldn't consistently put it all together. And the biggest thing they need to do to improve is we just haven't been able. So the first game against Colorado, we had 7 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. I mean, the year before that, we had 12 sacks the entire year. I was like, whoa, all right, we're on pace to do some big things. We just weren't able to do that consistently after that. You have to be able to get after the quarterback, pressure the quarterback. And Eric Chenander, our D coordinator, loves to blitz, right? But you can't leave those quarterbacks on cornerbacks on islands all the time. You have to be able to get after the quarterback without blitzing all the time. And we weren't able to do it consistently enough even when we blitz. So you got to be able to get pressure, which is what Clemson was able to do to Alabama.
Yeah, and one of my favorite Nebraska storylines from the entire season, just from a unique perspective, was the new quarterbacks coach, Mario, and I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right, Verduzco, that we did a feature on our Journey series, and he obviously is an interesting character to follow. So he's a football guy, you're a football guy, but I'm not sure I would line you guys up side by side and be able to determine from the eye test that you devoted your lives to the same sport. So what were your thoughts when you first saw him and the job he did with Adrian Martinez?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Adrian played really well this year, and one of the things you could see is that he doesn't act like a true freshman. He doesn't act like a guy. I mean, when he had his first start, that game against Colorado, because the game versus Akron was canceled, it had been 563 days since he had started a football game in his junior year of high school because he was hurt his senior year. But he didn't look like that. He was obviously well coached. They obviously gave him plenty enough options that there was various things that they could do, but they didn't overload him. And gradually, as the year went along, and he got hurt, and once he came back and started to be healthy again, you could see that he was progressing, and they were putting more and more onto his plate. And Mario Verduzco was a huge part of that. Now, I've heard them kind of refer to him as the mad scientist on the offense, the mad scientist to the coaches, almost a mad genius, a little bit, if you will. So he's kind of guy. He's got that big cigar hanging out of his mouth. He's got the sunglasses. I mean, he's got kind of that. I don't want to say old man swag because that comes across the wrong way. But he's got that. He's got that swagger as an older gentleman as he is.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You were around football a long time, and so many characters in the football world that you come across. And I'm glad he's now part of that Big Ten family. He's been fun to follow. Adam, before we wrap up, I wanted to get maybe a story or two from your playing days, something that sticks with you to this day, back in your Husker days, because usually athletes have one or two or a few that stand out. I didn't know if there were any that jumped out to you when you reflect and you might tell, around the dinner table or when you're hanging out with the guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that always pop into my head. My lifelong dream was to play at Nebraska. All right, I played in the NFL, but my household growing up, everything revolved around college football. I have honestly, on and off, ever since I was about 12, thought about how to fix the college football, because for the longest time, the championship, how to find the champion, because for the longest time we couldn't get 1 versus 2. And then we could, but not if they were going to the Rose Bowl in '97. And then you finally could. But then there was all these issues with the BCS. And the one year where Florida State got in over Miami, even though Miami beat Florida State in the year 2000 when Florida State lost, I think, 12-2 to Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl that year. And it was just like something I've constantly been working on. So, yeah, for me, the first time I ran out of the tunnel at Memorial Stadium, the tunnel walk as a freshman, I actually blocked a field goal that game. It was a very close game. So that's one of my memories. The last time I ever ran off the field, I wasn't exactly excited for the game to end, again, against Colorado. And I was probably the last player, coach, anybody off the field by a good 5-6 minutes. I'm walking off the field, and the North Stadium, the fans, started kind of chanting my name and clapping. To this day, there was something that was like, whoa, why are you doing that? That's really cool. It was pretty awesome. I think back to Texas A&M when we clinched going to the Big 12 championship, playing Oklahoma. I remember looking around. So A&M does all these chants, and they do all these movements in the stands. And I had to play I got dizzy. I almost got sick and threw up the first quarter because they would move back and forth in unison, and it made me dizzy. And so I realized, it's the only stadium this has ever happened, I realized I couldn't look in the stand because that's what was making me sick in my stomach. So I would play, and then I'd stare at the ground. And while the middle linebacker was making the call on defense, or the coaches were talking to me on the sideline, I had to stare at the ground. In fact, our D coordinator got mad at me. I'm like, Coach, I can't look up. I pointed to what was going on. I go, it's making me dizzy. And so that was kind of an interesting story when we played Michigan in the Alamo Bowl. If you go back and watch that, they did, because we were ahead, it's the last play of the game. They're on their own 20. They did a reverse, a double reverse, and then they threw it laterally, all these different plays trying to score like the Dolphins did in my Patriots this year. But they were going back and forth across the whole entire field, not just like 10 or 20 yards. And so I did about three of these laps back and forth across the field, which is like 150 yards. At the end of the game, I'm tired. I'm a big dude. I'm like, this is a ridiculous idea. So I go down to our 10-yard line. I'm like, I'm just going to stand here. And so that's still another long ways to jog. So I'm standing there. By this time, I'm just exhausted. It's the longest play I've ever had in my entire life, yardage-wise. And I'm like, and I see the guy running. I'm like, oh, great. I got to go make this tackle. I see the guy running, and then I see our safety hit him, and I thought he went out of bounds. And I start jogging off the field. And then I realize he's still running. And had Blake Tiki not made that game-saving tackle, I forget what it was, about our 20, 15, 10-yard line, I would have felt like the biggest jerk in the world because I would have done all that running and then still not made the right play. But that was one of the coolest things because we were down pretty big in that game for a while, and we made a comeback to beat the Wolverines. So that was a pretty cool game. So those are just some of the ones that popped into my mind.
Yeah, I especially love the 12th man story when you look up, because that is unique how Texas A&M does that with their fans. And speaking of 12th man, they kind of, I think, Seahawks might have stolen that from Texas A&M or maybe the other way around. I'm not sure. But I did want to ask an NFL question of you because you were a first-round pick of the Rams, and I'm not sure if you root for them at all since they have moved to LA, or how this even enters into the mind of a vet or a retired NFL player. But with a franchise literally picking up and moving, does that alter how you kind of associate with a former team that you played for in your mind, or does it not really matter to someone like you?
Well, so going back to what you said first, it's interesting because I've always wondered who was the 12th man first. Was it Texas A&M or was it the Seahawks? I've always wondered that. I don't know. Maybe I should look that up. But yeah, I definitely associate more with the Redskins than I do the Rams, just simply because once they left St. Louis, I still envision that practice facility. I still envision the Edward Jones Dome where we used to play, and it's just empty, I would imagine. And they picked up and went to L.A. They fired the coaches, I think, a year after I went to the Redskins. So the coaches were gone. Well, the new coaching staff came in and they cleaned house with players. They even fired the equipment managers. The trainers were all fired. A lot of them had been there since they were originally out in L.A. And they came to St. Louis, and then they were let go. So everybody is gone and different, and I still kind of have that allegiance. But then once they moved to L.A., I literally looked at everyone in the personnel department, everyone they had, and I found one guy who's still, even the owner is different, because Georgia passed away, then her son sold the team. And so there's only one guy who's associated with the organization in any way, shape, or form that's still there from when I was there, and that's actually the defensive tackle that I started with, Roy Glover. He now helps the rookies get acclimated there with the L.A. Rams. And so I don't really connect with the L.A. Rams. It's still weird to say that for me, as much as I do the Washington Redskins, for sure. Yeah,
James Laurinaitis, who is obviously a BTN contributor, he's a longtime Ram that I kind of want to ask him that now as well, because he was in St. Louis for quite a long time. So that's just interesting. I've always wondered that.
So what did James say?
I haven't asked him yet. I'm going to put it on the list. Okay. He's not really around this time of year, so maybe next season when he's back around, I'll have to ask him. Adam, before we wrap up, I want to bring up your WWE interest, because I had George Kittle on the podcast back before he was like a breakout star. He was just a rookie at this time, and he's a big Stone Cold Steve Austin fan. I'm not really a WWE guy, but since you guys kind of share that trait, I figured I'd bring it up and maybe ask your favorite wrestler, how you got interested in the sport.
Yeah, so my favorite wrestler is Goldberg, and it was interesting. Robert RG3's rookie year in the Redskins, when he kind of set the whole NFL on fire with the read option thing. Nobody was allowed to interview him and I had just started my show back then, which was Fourth and Pain, which was half football, half wrestling. And I asked our PR guy, I said, hey, can I interview Robert? I'm his teammate. Obviously, I'm going to give him softball. So anyways, I asked him his favorite wrestler, and he listed about 4 or 5 guys, and he listed Goldberg as one of them. I think I put it in the title of that show that week or whatever. Goldberg saw it, tweeted us. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, would you ever want to come on the show and talk some wrestling? And he said yes. And then I'll never forget, I'm interviewing him, and I'm talking to him, and you can just tell he does not care about, I shouldn't say he does not care about wrestling. It was a means to an end is what it was for him. But I asked him a couple football questions. Being a former Georgia Bulldog, I mean, he's a very good player, Atlanta Falcons, defensive lineman. These are all things that I liked about him to begin with, because I was a D lineman. His voice and tone and everything changed immediately. And all of a sudden, he got very, very excited. So after we ended the interview, I said, hey, you want to come on and talk football? So he ended up coming on every week that year, that football season, and doing picks with us, heading into each and every Sunday. He came on the show 17 straight weeks. So anyways, long-winded answer, Goldberg is my favorite wrestler of all time. It was the Ultimate Warrior when I was growing up. I never wanted to like a guy. Like, I didn't want to like Hogan because everybody else liked him, so I liked the Warrior. I didn't want to like Stone Cold, as awesome as he was, so I always liked Goldberg or The Rock. Plus, I kind of like those big guys that are kind of like weightlifting monsters. You know, that's kind of what I like. I like to lift weights, intensity, raw, you know, all that stuff. So I kind of relate to those guys a little bit more. How I got into it, the 2 things my dad watched growing up was college football and pro wrestling. Those are the 2 things we watched. Every Monday night, it was WWF Raw, and it was WCW Nitro. And it was, I don't even know if you remember this, it was so long ago in the pay-per-view era that you had to go down to your local cable station. You had to get the little box, bring it home to your TV, hook it up to your TV to watch the pay-per-view, and then you had to take it back when it was done. That's how long ago. I don't even know if most people remember that at all. And then when Hogan turned heel, he made himself a bad guy, in 1996 Bash at the Beach, I will never forget this to this day. It still cracks me up now that I'm older. My dad didn't say a word. The crowd's booing, they're throwing pop on him, throwing crap in the ring, and my dad just doesn't say a word. All right, he gets up, turns the TV off, unhooks the box, walks out of the room, and he took it back, and he just never watched pro wrestling again. And he didn't really ban me from doing it, but I knew I wasn't supposed to too. So I used to watch it when he was in the other room, and his office is right outside of our living room. So I would have Monday Night Football on the previous channel button. So I'd be watching Raw. I'd type in the Nitro. Like, I had the numbers memorized, but I needed to have previous channel Monday Night Football in case he walked out. I could hit it real quick. And so I kind of watched the Monday Night Wars, as they call them, through the Monday Night Football blip between my dad coming in and out of the room. So for me, I never got into Captain America, Superman. Like, you can't really go meet those people. Like, I've had the opportunity to meet Hogan and Cena and Goldberg and a lot of these guys, especially the football fans, which most of them, the guys that I've met are. So to me, I think that's what was different to me. You can actually go meet those guys. All the other guys are just people dressed up in a costume. It's not really them. So anyways, that's how I got interested.
That's hilarious. And it's interesting that you mentioned Goldberg really liking football and talking about football, because what I remember him from, not being a huge WWE fan growing up, is him being in the Longest Yard movie and playing a football player in that movie. So that's where I remember him primarily from.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Stone Cold was in that movie. He actually played, I believe, a little bit of college football as well. So, yeah, it was funny when I watched that movie, because I interviewed, the first time I saw it was after I interviewed Goldberg. I was like, yeah, there he is. He's probably living out his real dream of what he really wants to do. And then they had a whole bunch of WWE individuals or wrestlers in that movie as well. So, yeah, he definitely is a football guy himself.
All right, Adam, well, you've been very generous with your time. Really appreciate it. Before I let you go, I need you to give me a throw the bones, because that's your signature sign-off, right?
That's right. All right. Until next time, Big Ten Nation, go Big Red. I don't know if everyone wants to hear that, but always remember, let's throw the bones.
All right, thanks once again to Adam for joining me. A lot of fun talking to him, and I always love hearing former player stories. He had some good ones. His takes on the current playoff format are interesting. I disagree about the 4-team layout being the best answer. I think 6 or 8 would be better, but always willing to hear someone else's opinion, and someone who knows the game much better than I do. Always willing to hear that out. And thank him for coming on the show and expressing that, and get into Huskers talk as well. All right, we'll move now to our Colleen for the Culture segment. As I kind of alluded to at the top of the show, it's going to be a lot of pop culture talk, diving into some of the fringe discussions outside of the field and the court, and it should be a lot of fun. So we'll get into it. We'll kind of describe off the top what it's going to be as we talk, and then we'll just have some fun and kind of see how it goes and where it goes from here. All right, let's kick it over to Colleen, see what she's got. It's Colleen for the Culture, and it starts right now. All right, welcome in. It's our first edition of Colleen for the Culture, Coll For The Culture. Colleen, what are we calling this, first of all?
It's a bit of a working title. Coll For The Culture sounds pretty good right now. We'll see how that goes.
Rolls off the tongue. Colleen, first of all, for those who don't know you, just tell us who you are. I mean, the audience has maybe heard your name being introduced as an associate producer, assistant producer. Just let everyone know who you are.
Well, thanks for letting me join on, for bringing some culture to the show. I work in programming. I am a very dedicated Badger alum, coming off of a heartbreaking weekend for Badger basketball, so could probably tee us up nicely into pretty much some culture that we're going to bring to the show.
Yeah, so we'll talk about your Badgers and how they're struggling a little bit in just a second, but when you say, like, culture that you're bringing to the show, what are we going to be talking about here? What's the essence behind this?
We're going to bring some memes. We're going to bring some relevant pop culture. We're going to bring some funny behind the scenes with athletes, maybe. Kind of anything that falls in the realm of Big Ten sports and also in our social media savvy generation. And to give people an idea, like, of how the vibe is around BTN, this is kind of the stuff that we talk about at our desks. Like, Colleen sits across from me. We've got our whole digital media crew in a confined space, and we all, throughout the day, if stuff pops up, we'll toss it back and forth. We'll send links in our Slack channels, in our Skype channels, and just kind of have fun, and it's kind of what the perks of working at a sports network. So I'm going to try and bring everyone into the loop, bring everyone into our little circle, and Colleen's going to start us off by letting us know what is going on with your Wisconsin Badgers. We're taping this Tuesday, so Monday night, scored 15 points in the first half. I know you were very concerned. I'm sure you have to feel a little better, though, because they did make it a game and almost beat Maryland. But, this isn't what you Badger fans expect historically out of your squad. Exactly. I mean, coming with a 21-point comeback was nice. It was exciting for a second. But in classic Badger fashion, they're teeing me up for some heartbreaking losses here in conference play. I mean, being 3-3 so far isn't ideal. Obviously, my goal is just for them to make the tournament, unlike last year getting devastatingly left out. But Ethan Happ is back. They're trying to build a squad around him. It's hard. But exactly why, at the beginning of this Badger basketball season, I decided to invest some time into the NBA because I knew that this would come.
Yeah, I was going to say, you are a Badger fan because you went to Wisconsin, but you kind of have a random NBA team that you follow. And it's the Portland Trailblazers, and that's honestly a great team if you work at BTM to follow because we look up and down the roster. They got a ton of Big Ten players and names that people will probably recognize.
I mean, exactly why I decided to pick the Portland Trailblazers. I did not want to be a bandwagon fan because everybody knows that is a huge no-no.
You're not a Warriors fan.
Not a Warriors fan.
Not a LeBron stan.
Absolutely could not jump on the LeBron-Laker train. And so I did some solid research as a very dedicated sports journalist and came to terms that the Portland Trailblazers have a pretty stocked roster of Big Ten players, from Evan Turner from Ohio State, Jake Layman from Maryland, Myers Leonard from your ILL, Nick Stauskas from Michigan. We've got Caleb Swanigan from Purdue, even though he's not getting so much PT. But it's been an interesting first half of the NBA season.
See, I haven't watched much NBA this year because the Bulls are so bad. I'm a Bulls fan. They're trash right now. And, I keep up with, I guess, Big Ten alums, like just with the nature of my Twitter feed, people will pop up and stuff, but you've been following, you watch the games, you sit down and watch these West Coast games late at night, right?
Oh, it's devastating. They're at 9 o'clock, 9:30 start times, but that's the dedication that we see here.
And you have not just the Big Ten guys, I mean, at least Portland is kind of a, average to a slightly above average team, but they do have Damian Lillard, who's a franchise-type player. You know, it's not just...
He's so fun to get behind.
Exactly.
I mean, it's hard to not want to sit down and watch him, and if CJ McCollum's having a big night, if Yusuf is killing it.
You need to start like a... Because you know how there's NFL bars in Chicago where you can gather to watch your team. I'm sure there's some NBA ones too. If there's not one already, you need to start a Portland Trail Blazers. There's like hangout spot, meetup spot, bar, you know, do a happy hour or something like that.
Conglomeracy of any Trailblazers fan. Rip City, I'm all about it.
All right. So Rip City, we'll check in with Colleen's teams as we move along here. You know, it's Wisconsin, obviously there's a tie-in. Portland, we're trying to tie it in, and she can update us as we go along. Got to root for the homegrown talent that's coming out of the Big Ten. All right, Colleen, we said we'd get into culture. Let's start diving in, because right now I don't follow this stuff that closely, but apparently it's a pretty busy time of year when it comes to Hollywood. Is that accurate?
Well, yes, I would definitely say this is award show season. That is amongst us, and it's kind of like the October for sports season. You get all of these different big-time names joining together for week after week of incredible critic content. And you have all of Hollywood's celebrities, and they're best dressed, and it's everywhere. I mean...
What are some of the award shows? Because, like, you say it's like October. October's, you know, got the MLB playoffs. They got NFL in full swing. It's got hockey starting up and NBA starting up. So I see what you're saying, but, like, what's going on now that I need to know about? Because, like I said, I'm out of the loop.
It starts off with Golden Globes, and then we just had the Critics' Choice, then it hits the SAG Awards, and then come February, it's Oscar season. So one after another, you know, you're getting on to all of the trends of what movies are going to win. The biggest names are walking the red carpet. I mean, it's kind of fun to follow along.
All right. So in the spirit of the award season, and with it being New Year's and in 2019, you know, we're kind of past that almost. It's mid-January, but I think we can still kind of hop on the New Year's theme right now. We're going to give out awards. This is our first episode of some of the best of 2018, and we'll do it in the award theme season. So run through some categories right now, and then we can get to the award winners. What do we got?
Should we start with Best Hype Song?
Let's start with Best Hype Song, because this is very important if you are at a sporting event. To all the DJs out there, I know, like, a lot of these teams got in-house DJs nowadays, which I'm loving this trend that, you know, hire someone to get the crowd hyped, and hire someone to, like, the marching band's great and all that, but sometimes you just need a hype song that the marching band can't necessarily provide. So it's a couple hype songs. One that we've really talked about all year is really taking over and bringing the juice.
I think it kind of became celebritized by Purdue with Mo Bamba.
Yeah. Mo Bamba, for those who don't know, was named after a basketball player who played at Texas, and now it's on the Orlando Magic, and he's from New York. And so a New York rapper named Sheck West, the song came out last year, but it really didn't get popular until football season this year, and I feel like college football team and NFL team started playing Mo Bamba to hype up the crowd. And I don't know, like, I got hype watching it. I don't know about you.
Absolutely. It had that, like, electrifying effect on the crowd, and you could hear it while watching the broadcast on television.
We liked when Purdue dropped it when they were beating Ohio State. That was like a night game, and it was in the bag, and they knew they were going to win, and it just came on, and, you know, I kind of got the chills from here. Penn State did it as well. They had a cool scene with, like, the players running off, and it's always, I think, important to have the students and the players on the same page, because they can all kind of sing it together. And I'm sure it came on once or twice, you know, on the weekends out here in Chicago. I don't know, Colleen. I don't know if you can speak to that at all.
It was definitely played a few times around the local watering holes. But one of Alex's favorite categories, I think, here is Best Drip. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by Best Drip?
All right, Best Drip is another kind of hip-hop, pop culture trend that was introduced to me in last basketball season when Michigan, I think, kind of was first on the drip train here. And now it's, like, kind of mainstream in hip-hop, pop culture, but I was told and actually tutored kind of by Jordan Poole and the rest of the drip gang on the Michigan basketball team what drip meant. It's just kind of, in my, you know, uneducated layman's terms here, it means to kind of have some swag, some style. You know, you just got that vibe around you. You got the drip, and it's one of those things that you see it, you know it.
I think, you know, it might have started like DJ had long hair last year, but, you know, we've all had these like cut since like high school. So I mean, when we got to Michigan, it like all came together. We was all together with it.
I wanted to grow it out as much as I could, but I didn't want to like have an afro because I didn't know what to do with the size. So I faded the size a little bit. Then I started doing a little couple parts, and then my drip buddies started to do it as well.
It's a few of them that actually has it. Jordan, Isaiah, Ibby, Eli, they all look alike. So you know who the drip boys are when you see them. And I think Herb is a part of the drip boys as well.
So Jordan Poole and them introduced it to me last year, and Eli Brooks is still on that team. He was one of the drip boys, I believe. E.B. Watson, he transferred, but he was also in that crew, and Isaiah Livers as well. And now it's carried over to this year, and you hear these new songs coming out. What is it, Drip Too Hard? You heard that one? Who's that by? Do you know?
Oh, gosh. No.
It's by Lil Baby. That's who it is.
Okay.
Yeah, Lil Baby. So far, I'm very, as you guys can see, I'm very in tune with the hip-hop game. But best drip goes to Jordan Poole and the Drip Boys at Michigan. Keep dripping, and maybe drip all the way to another Final Four.
I mean,
year.
I know 17-0 starting the year off. Sounds like they're dripping.
Yeah, 17-0. All right, what other categories we got? Read them off to me.
We have the best catchphrase that wasn't.
Okay.
Elaborate a little bit, Alex.
I'll get into what happened kind of behind the scenes, but do you remember us talking about this catchphrase as it kind of was repeated by Mr. Tom Allen, the Indiana head football coach?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so Indiana football coach Tom Allen has a sign-off phrase. We see this sometimes with Big Ten coaches that they'll give an interview and they'll sign off by saying something like their school's, rah, rah, cheer. Pat Fitzgerald has Go Cats. PJ Fleck has Row the Boat, Sky Uma, Go Gophers. So he, says it really quick. But there was one that I couldn't really figure out what was going on and what was being said, and that was courtesy of Tom Allen.
Kellyo.
He would say it really quickly, and I thought he was saying tally ho. What he was really saying was LEO, and Indiana corrected us by saying that means, I think, love each other or love everyone. So he would say it really quick, LEO, but it sounded like tally ho. And somehow it got passed along, I think from me, I think I was the source of this, to our producers here. And we actually had our honor talent saying tally ho because I think I'm patient zero for this because I misinterpreted what Tom Allen was saying. So best catchphrase that wasn't, tally ho / love each other. I hope he keeps saying it into 2019 because Tom Allen, one of those energetic coaches that is obviously instilling a catchphrase that is award-winning. So shout out, Tom. Colleen, I'm going to kick it over to you now for some of the best memes of the year because memes are hot in the streets and never been hotter. Run me through these memes, and I know you can explain the first one because it's something we did on our air today. Even it's made its way to BTN's air.
Well, it's kind of a cautionary ordeal now, but the Bird Box Challenge has really hit the airwaves and the internet everywhere with everyone doing the Bird Box Challenge, putting the blindfolds across their eyes and kind of letting the rest take its course.
So what is the Bird Box Challenge? Where did it come from? For those who don't know, who are living under a rock, like how would you explain, I guess, where does the blindfold come from?
It took off from the next Netflix phenomenon with Sandra Bullock, which is absolutely devastating that people are now referring to her as the woman from Bird Box. But regardless,
ignoring her past 3 decades of film work.
Incredible content.
Yeah.
That apparently is what now she's known for.
Yeah.
And it's kind of definitely schemed the Quiet Place essence of the movie of taking away one of your senses.
So what is the challenge that people do on social media? They just blindfold themselves, or they do like a specific task that they have to do blindfolded?
It's kind of a conglomerate of sorts. They try to partake in a bunch of everyday activities, and they're ridiculous and super dangerous. But lo and behold, Netflix strikes again with brainwashing some of our generation.
I mean, that's pretty much how, it made me want to watch the movie because I'm seeing this meme called the Bird Box Challenge, and I'm like, what is it? Like, I need to watch this movie so I don't get left out on the meme. So it's kind of genius marketing by them.
From one meme to the next.
Yeah.
Alex, please elaborate on one of your most favorite recent memes.
All right, so we're going to give Bird Box Challenge the meme of 2018, but I think we have an early candidate for best meme of 2019. And it's one that I just stumbled across like in the last couple weeks or so. And I think we can play it for you here just so you get a audio aid of what it sounds like, or else it won't really make sense, just me describing it. But anyway, on the Breakfast Club show with Charlamagne the God, his nationally syndicated radio show, that they have all kinds of musicians, rappers, people on all the time. And Kodak Black, the rapper, was on, and they were asking him about his girlfriend or some significant other in his life, and they asked if this girlfriend might be the one.
I hope so.
And he sheepishly says, like, I hope so. And so now you can kind of apply it to any situation in sports or outside of sports. So if I said, Colleen, is Wisconsin going to get back to the NCAA tournament this year?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, so that's the meme early frontrunner for 2019. I think we got a solid candidate there. And then I don't know if it'll top the Bird Box Challenge, but I'm sure there'll be many more to come in 2019. All right, Colleen, before we wrap up, we have to discuss a couple of other social media phenomenons that are sweeping the social media streets right now. And the first one is this egg that I've seen making the rounds. It started on Instagram. They're trying to replicate it on Twitter. It's so dumb, but I need you to explain to me why there's an image of an egg that right now is noteworthy on social media.
Dumb or not, Kylie Jenner last year crushed the Instagram game with her most liked photo was her and her baby Stormy.
Okay.
She got over 18...
Her baby's name's Stormy?
Yes, with an I.
With an I, okay.
With an I, style points.
Okay.
And got over 18 million likes. And so
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And some people that clearly didn't agree with that or wanted to see what they could do, the world record egg account came out and said, let's set a world record together and get the most liked post on Instagram, beating the current world record held by Kylie Jenner, 18 million. We got this.
So how long ago did they post it? Can you see?
So that was posted on January 4th.
And how many likes does it have now?
Over 42 million.
So it's almost tripled. Doing my math in my head, it has tripled Kylie Jenner's record in 11 days or so. And it's funny because I've seen in the Instagram comment sections, which have not been spoiled yet, like YouTube comment sections or Facebook comment sections, by just trash. In Instagram comments, people are saying, just like the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead to the Cavs, Kylie Jenner blew an 18 million lead to an egg. So the egg has overtaken Kylie, and it just shows, I think, in 2019 the kind of dumb things that can grab traction in social media.
And she comes back in rebuttals with posting Kylie when she sees the world record egg account and straight up fries the egg.
So Kylie clapped back?
Yes, she clapped back.
So, with a video?
With a video.
Okay, wait, I'm looking at it now. This is bad audio, but she literally cracks open an egg on the hot, I assume, California street, cracks
Calabasas,
it open.
probably.
Calabasas, okay, and fries the egg. So I don't know. I think the original egg is still winning. Now there's all these copycats that are trying to, get the millions and millions of likes on Twitter. People will do anything for clout these days, and it's nuts.
The Kardashians love the clout.
Yeah, and this is only, of course, probably just boosting her. Not that she needs it, but boosting her social media presence even more.
But with other things sweeping the internet,
there's one other one that I've seen. I think it originated on Facebook, but it's made its way over to Instagram and Twitter now. What's going on with this 10-year challenge?
The 10-year challenge, which Facebook, they introduced it to try to post your 2009 profile picture.
So Facebook actually started this?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And to put it next to your 2019 current profile picture, just 10-year challenge, where have you come, what have you done? But in classic Hollywood fashion, you have all of these celebrities posting this glamour shot from 2009 with a beautiful shot of 2019. You're like, that seems a little unfair.
Well, people our age, that's bad news. We're, early to mid-20s, what we looked like at 13, 14 is embarrassing, straight up.
Oh, it's completely rough. I was rocking crimped hair with a Hot Tools crimper.
So you've done it, the challenge.
I had to.
Okay.
We had to.
I might not partake in this one because I look completely different. I think I went through a chunky phase when I was 13 or 14.
As does every endearing sports journalist does. Come on.
And every middle schooler does, I feel like. But we'll see. We'll see if I get involved in 10-year challenge. I want to do it with some Big Ten athletes to see what they look like. We'll see if we can dig up some old pictures of Big Ten athletes. I feel like MySpace and Facebook archives live out there somewhere. We can find some. But all right, so we have the egg and the 10-year challenge sweeping Facebook right now and Instagram and Twitter. I'm sure next week or whenever we regroup here, there'll be something equally unimportant but also kind of fun to talk about. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. And before we wrap up the first Coll For The Culture segment, we've got to talk about some current sports events going on with the NFL playoffs coming up on the conference championship weekend. And with the 4 teams still in it, there's plenty of Big Ten players on the roster. You have the rosters in front of you, don't you? I want to hear some of the players that we got out of the Big Ten playing this weekend on the Rams, Patriots, Chiefs, and Saints, and not the Bears. So,
not the Packers.
Or Packers.
So we're left out of the conversation. But, I mean, first and foremost, you've got Breezes just leading the Saints proudly as a newly 41.
It's today's birthday? It is, isn't it?
Yesterday, maybe?
It's one of these days, yeah. They're all blending together. But, yeah, he's chasing Tom Brady for the old head of the year in the NFL. And I would say him and Brady are the most influential Big Ten alums still playing. I don't think there's really even a challenge there. Let me read down the rest of the rosters. Another really noteworthy Big Ten alum that's been in the news a lot lately, Jeff Allen on the Chiefs. I don't know if you saw this story, but there was a big snowstorm in Kansas City this past weekend. It's going to be another one this weekend probably for the Chiefs-Patriots game. But Jeff Allen was trying to get to the game. His car got stuck in the snowstorm, and a stranger helped him out. Didn't know he was a Chiefs player. Jeff Allen didn't know the person, and it turns out the guy is homeless, and that kind of got out as Jeff Allen tried to figure out who this stranger was that helped him. So Jeff Allen got to the game, obviously, on time and found out who the stranger was, and now they're doing some nice things for this guy. I think his name is Dave, getting him to the game this weekend. And hopefully someone in that Kansas City community reaches out and helps this guy get a home because, the game is great, but you want to, I feel like, give something back long-term to someone like that is...
Absolutely, paying it so forward.
Yeah.
I love that.
But isn't that cool? It's kind of how sports and social media kind of interject, and I don't think he ever would have found out who he was if, social media wasn't around. So some really noteworthy...
It's our hero of the week right there.
Yeah, noteworthy Big Ten alums in the news, and just reading through some other names. Rex Burkhead scored a touchdown for Nebraska or for the New England Patriots this past weekend. He's from Nebraska. Who else we got here? You got James White,
classic Wisconsin grad.
Yeah. Did you watch his? Did you watch the Patriots at all? He had 15 catches.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's a captain this year.
Yeah, and he's basically a wide receiver because with the Patriots being able to pick apart his own defense like the Chargers had, they can just dump it out of the backfield to James White. He's been incredible for them. I mean, he has a huge moment in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. I can't remember which one that was. And then one other guy, I know I'm reading off Illinois names here, and I swear these aren't just local bias ties. Yeah, for those who don't know, I went to Illinois, so I have a little bit of background knowledge on some of these guys. But Justin Hardy is a guy in the Saints who is a special teams player. And he's a guy that did not really have a remarkable career at Illinois. This is it's one of these weird stories where he was a wide receiver at Illinois, didn't have great quarterback play, and never really broke out. But he caught on with the Saints at special teams and has carved out a niche and a role to become almost a Pro Bowl player. He was on the verge of making the Pro Bowl this year. He scored at least one touchdown on special teams, and he's kind of like a hometown favorite in New Orleans now because he's just kind of grinded his way to a special teams spot, and I think it's really cool that Justin Hardy's been able to do that. So, any other names that jump out at you here? I know you got some other Badgers on here as well.
Yeah, we've got Vince Beagle as a linebacker for the Saints.
I don't know how many of these guys are active right now.
I know.
Shout out to our guy Brent Urena, our colleague here. He made a list of all the players and posted it on BTN.com. So I guess we'll wrap up with some predictions or who you want to win. We can either predict or ask who you'd rather you'd see in the Super Bowl coming up on championship weekend here.
Well, I think also let it be known how mind-blowing, how many people don't know that Kansas City, where it is, which state is Kansas City in. So if people can figure that out.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, if you were taking it at face value, you'd say Kansas. But us Midwesterners know that it's in Missouri. It's actually the biggest city in Missouri. People think St. Louis is the biggest city in Missouri, but Kansas City actually I think has like more than double the population of St. Louis. So
geography facts.
Yeah, so we got culture and geography coming at you on the podcast. So who do you got, Rams or Saints?
Saints.
Do you want the Saints to win, or do you think they're going to win?
I kind of have fallen in love with Drew Brees' family, so yes, I'm wholeheartedly pulling for the Saints.
They've taken over social media too.
They're incredible. He's got all these little like gremlin kids that are like catching stuffed animals in his family room.
Okay, so Saints. I also want the Saints to win. I just think like New Orleans is such a better football city than LA.
Okay, fair, but also kind of am into the storyline of Sean McVay and everything that the Rams.
Well, you're a Southern California native, so.
Well, yeah, but like regardless, that's super cool. He's paving the way for someone as young as him to be.
Well, now everyone's trying to copycat it too. They're trying to hire these young. Maybe the handsome thing is just a coincidence, but all these young, handsome coaches like the Packers did.
Matt LaFleur, I'm so on board.
Everyone's trying to find the next Matt Nagy. But yeah, your team's out, the Packers. My team, the Bears, is out. I still think the Bears would have beaten the Rams last week and could have beaten the Saints this upcoming weekend if Cody Parkey was stepped up and made a kick. Maybe things would have been different, but
he's been taking. He was on the Today Show. He's been taking over the media world.
Let's actually talk about that real quick because I did not appreciate, as a Bears fan, him going on the Today Show after his teammates all supported him publicly. None of them went out to the media. First of all, they all had his back after he was booed off the field. And credit to him, he stood up and took questions from reporters. But like none of his teammates, like the actual stars of the team, Khalil Mack, Mitch Trubisky, Allen Robinson, these guys aren't going on the Today Show and trying to stir up a pity party. So I know, and it seemed like yesterday's press conference with the Bears head coach Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, the GM, they didn't seem too happy with Parkey either. So I think he's not long for Chicago. What do you think about someone like that going on a non-sports show to talk about it?
He has one job on the team, so I have little sympathy for him, and I don't really understand why he all of a sudden gets to be this self-proclaimed spokesperson for kickers of the NFL. Right. Like I don't really understand what his end goal is here, but I guess also that's just my Packers bias going against anything.
Yeah, it was
Chicago
weird.
Bears.
It was weird, but all right, enough Bears. Let's get to Chiefs Patriots. Who do you got in that one? Who do you want to see in the Super Bowl?
I mean, I think it'd be refreshing to not have the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Agreed.
And I think their whole storyline right now is hilarious. That are they the underdog? Are they not? Does everyone think they suck? Do they not?
Well, here's my thing with the Patriots, and I've noticed a trend as I've basically lived my whole life with Boston sports being dominant. New England sports fans love to consider themselves the underdog, even though they're absolutely not the underdog. And I don't know if they really believe it. I think they work themselves into believing that they are undervalued or that nobody believes in them. That's how, when you stay on top for so long, that's how you motivate yourself. You're like, well, no, everyone wants to see us fail. No one believes in us. I don't know if you saw, but Tom Brady in the postgame interview after they won said, yeah, everyone thinks we suck. You're Tom Brady. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, you obviously do not suck, Tom Brady.
And it's like Patriots, they're the franchise that like doesn't die. You have to beat them again. Make sure they're 6 feet under before, ruling them out because they're basically like cockroaches. They won't go away. And we saw that in the Super Bowl against the Falcons a couple of years ago.
And Boston's also rolling off of the World Series. I don't really want to see them winning anything.
Enough. So I agree. I want to see Saints Chiefs.
I think that'd be a great matchup. Pat Mahomes, electrifying.
And like we already kind of saw Rams Chiefs in Monday Night Football. Like everyone raved about that game. That's great. Don't need to see a rematch. I don't need 2 weeks of everyone showing highlights from that 54-49 game. Like great game, but everyone gushed over it when it happened. So let's just get a fresh matchup, fresh faces, like you said. Enough of the Patriots. Saints Chiefs.
Let's do it.
All right, Colleen, it's been fun. We will keep this moving going forward. We'll bring some fresh content every week. And thanks for suggesting this to me. First of all, it's definitely a flavor that podcasts needed. We don't really get outside Big Ten too much, so it's been fun.
All about the content. Thanks for having me, Alex.
All right, thanks once again to everyone for listening. Thanks to Adam, thanks to Colleen, and thanks to my producers Wes White and Julie Bronder as well. A lot of fun adding a new wrinkle to the show. A lot of fun having a new guest on, Adam Carriker. And as always, it's fun making these and putting them out as often as possible. So stay tuned. Future episodes on the Take 10 podcast. We'll try and get them out once a week if possible. Please leave a rating and review on iTunes and on Google Play if you like the show. Always good to see positive reviews and positive feedback, so appreciate that. All right, until next week, we'll talk to you soon here on the Take 10 podcast.